Seder. So we're on page 5, I think. And the thing that we saw was that in the beginning of Nedarim, the Rambam writes what I brought here. It's very interesting. If you open up here, you spoke how do you say, the praise of Sefaria. Mm-hmm. So when I went in there this morning early to try to get the Rebbe's source, so it turns out, at least how I saw it, that they quote the Rambam without all the openings and the closings. So the stuff that the Rebbe thought was very important, they took out. So I just plugged it in.
But wasn't that the problem with the Rambam? He didn't give any sources.
No, he can, except for he has an introduction to each topic, and before the introduction, he has a short. We'll see it now. Mm-hmm. What he gives a short synopsis of everything, and they took that out.
Who took it out?
In a site called Sefaria, they took it out. I don't know why. So if they're listening, they should put it back in. So look at the third source here. Rambam Pticha L'Hilchot Nedarim. So it's called a Pticha. It's an opening because it's a few lines that are not the halachos themselves. It's just a synopsis. Right. So he writes Sichot Nedarim, laws of Nedarim. And I looked in different translations. People say vows. They don't say. They just divide between a vow and an oath usually. In any case, a neder is a vow that a person takes. Yesh bichlalan shalosh mitzvot. It includes, in general, 3 mitzvos. 3 commandments. Shtei mitzvot aseh, 2 positive commandments, v'achat mitzvot lo taseh, 1 prohibitive commandment. V'zeu pratan, and these are those mitzvos. The first one is shishmo miltzas fotav v'yaseh kmo shenadar. He should guard what comes out of his lips, and she should do as he vowed to do. Bet shelo yachel dvaro, meaning he shouldn't tarry, he shouldn't take too long to fulfill what he said. And Gimel, sheyufar neder hashvua. And the third thing is that most of the nedarim in the world should be annulled. And this will be our topic, that after you have a neder, there's a mitzvah
to annul it.
Not take too long, it's not more than 3 yom to.
Right. It's a machlokus in Rosh Hashanah.
So that's where we
in Megillah. Rosh Hashanah, Megillah. Maybe it's.
But that's where we have annulled the vows by Rosh Hashanah. We only have that opportunity once.
No. Anytime that you make a neder, you go to a chacham, you go to a
3
Talmid
people
chacham,
sit down
and you annul it. Except, as we'll see, that there's a difference between a vow that has nothing to do with the korban and something that does have to do with the korban. This we'll see in a few minutes. But to get into the whole topic of vows of nedarim is very interesting, because the question that arises is, by the nazir, really the classic case of somebody who took on vows is a nazir, a Nazarite, and the Torah seems to treat him with some disdain.
It says, "Don't be a Nazarite."
Okay, why? Because it's enough what the Torah prohibited already. Why are you taking on more things? But there is an understanding, first of all, that you can call it the legalization of the individual, right? Now there's a legalization of cannabis everywhere. Whatever.
Cannabis.
But there's also the legalization of the individual. What does it mean?
Americans
what does it mean?
The English language.
What does it mean to legalize the individual? That in general the Torah is supposed to be for everybody, and suddenly one person or another takes on more. He like fashions, he forms his own sub-religion.
Yeah.
Well, it's not sub-religion. It's written in the Torah. It's not sub-religion.
Right. So the Torah says, "I want to legalize this," meaning I want to formalize it. I want you to understand how you can do it within the context of Torah.
Okay.
So that in general is what a neder is.
So we don't
That's what
promote
neders
it,
do.
but if you're going to be doing it, at least do it according to these laws.
Right. We want it to be in such a way, and there's a mitzvah to get rid of it.
Right.
Why? Because al tifrosh min hatzibur. Don't be separate from the rest of the public.
Yeah, there were plenty of people that didn't get rid of it. Shmuel didn't.
That's because that's a Nazirut Shimshon. Shmuel had a Nazirut Shimshon.
He had no choice either.
No, there's a Nazirut that you can't get rid of. There's a type of Nazirite.
He took it upon himself.
What?
He took it upon himself.
And the person decides that he's forever going to be this way.
Didn't his mother decide for him?
No,
That was
he decided.
No.
Shimshon was told, his mother was told by, but still he had to take it upon himself when he was 13.
That's right, she said.
But she didn't say
No wine will pass his lips.
Hmm?
Didn't she say no wine will pass his lips?
No.
When she was speaking to the Kohen?
No.
Am I mixing it all up?
Yeah. Okay, so now let's see again. So from this introduction that the Rambam wrote, the Rebbe says when you look at the introduction carefully, you see that he's basically basing it on the verse in Likutei, which is up here. It's the second thing. So you must fulfill what has come out of your lips, and perform what you have voluntarily vowed to Hashem. You should do, right? So we said that the Rebbe's shita in understanding Rebbe is that Rebbe is very strict on the words. That you have to do exactly what you said. And Chachamim who say that if you brought an older or bigger animal instead of the small animal that you vowed to bring, you're still Yotzei. Why? Because it says the Rebbe, they take the second part of the pasuk is more important. Vasita kasher nadarta. You should do as you said. Kasher. Kasher means as, meaning it's not exactly. Mutzas v'techa tishmo is very exact, and kasher dibarta is it's more lenient. It's more the content of what you meant. So then he wrote here in note 39. So look in Likutei Sichot in Chelek Yud Zayin. He says it's a whole shita that he has in understanding the machlokas, different disputes between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, and who wrote the Mishnah, or in his academy they wrote the Mishnah, and the rest of the sages. So where the first source that he brings is in Sukkah, that it says Shivat Yamim Toduru, 7 days you shall live in the Sukkah. So there's a machlokas. What's the machlokas? The machlokas is what is the minimum size of a sukkah? According to Rebbe, it has to be at least 4 by 4 cubits. Why? Because he says that's the minimum size to be able to live in something. But according to Chazal, according to the rest of the sages in that generation, the minimum size is 7 by 7 hands. Or what do they call this? No, tfachim. What do you call it, tefa? How do you say tefa in English? Hand breadth.
Yeah, that's right.
Hand breadth, I think.
Hand width.
Hand width? Okay. So I think there's another word. But in any case, it's 7 by 7. It's very small. Why? How could you make a sukkah that small?
How do you lie down in such a space?
You don't lie down in such a space. What you do is you put it over your head,
right,
and you eat inside. And that's enough. Because the eating is the main thing.
It says live.
By the way, that's what... Okay? And Chazal say, and the sages say, the main thing in living
is eating.
The content of the word to live means to eat, because that's what gives you life.
Right.
So the only thing that you really have to do inside the sukkah is to be able to eat in it. Right. And if you can eat in such a space, it's enough. So says the Rebbe about this, that this is another example of how their machlokus is how to interpret the Torah. You interpret it very strictly, saying taduru means you have to be able to live, you have to be able to sit there, you have to be able to lie down there. And the minimum size for a person, we know from other halachos, is 4 by 4 cubits. Yeah. And Chazal say no, it's ke'ein taduru. It's as if you live there. And the content of to live as if is only to be able to eat. So he says that's the source of this whole, and then he brings a few other examples, So this is the whole shita that he has in explaining the difference between Rebbe and Chazal. What do you not have?
How can they say it's as if? The Torah clearly says you should leave your home for 7 days. You should go and you should live somewhere else.
It doesn't say tadu. It says teshvu ke'ein tadu. What the Torah says is just to sit. And Chazal learned from that it means as if to live. To sit might mean exactly that. Just to eat. That's enough. If you can eat it, and you're done. By the way, that's one of the sources that the Rebbe also brings for proving that you don't have to sleep in the sukkah. Because you see very clearly from Chazal that the main thing is to eat. So if you eat in it, you've already performed the mitzvah. Okay, in any case. So we saw that as it. So now we're on page 6. V'chen b'inyanenu, on page 6. Katan vivi gadol arei alai, keves vivi ayin. Oh, I wanted to show you how different the Rambam is from the Gemara. We said that the Gemara, let's see it in the
number 5.
Did I not bring it? I didn't bring it. I didn't have a chance. I forgot to. I had it open. I didn't copy it. Okay, no.
You want me to open it up on my phone?
No. Mitzad matzah svatecha. When we say what comes out of your lips, says the Rambam. The example is a person said, "I'll bring a sheep as a sacrifice." She'ino kolelai, and a sheep does not include an older goat, an older sheep, an ayil who's 3 years old. Kidile. Ach mitzad tochen neder. But from the point of view of the content of what he meant, shu neder le'Hashem. It comes to the fact that it's not just any kind of vow that he took upon himself. It's a vow to bring something to be given to God. And when you give to God, it should be the very best. The fat should go to God. The best of your vows. All he meant in terms of the content is that he wanted to bring from the species of the sheep. The reason that he said a sheep, a keves, was for a different reason. Because at that moment, that's what he could imagine that he could obtain in terms of his capabilities, his monetary abilities, whatever. But what the sages say is that in the end, what he meant was just a specimen from the sheep. So according to Rabbi, that we only look at exactly what came out of his mouth. So you can't bring a big one instead of a small one. You can't bring an ayil instead of a keves. He made a vow for a small one. So you can't bring something that's different from what he expressed explicitly in his words. But according to the sages, what we look at is the content of what he meant. And that's the second part of the pasuk in Likutei. And again, this is Dvarim Kaf Gimel Kaf Daled 23-24. And there it says that at the end of the phrase is Vasita kasher nadai. You should do as you vowed. So even by the sages, it's not lechatchila, because lechatchila he should do. Why not grab both sides of the phrase in the Torah? Motzas vatecha tishmo ve'asita kasher nadat. You should do both of them. So lechatchila should be exactly what you said. You said a keves, bring a keves. Bring a year-old or a 2-year-old sheep. But b'di'eved, since kasher revi gadol la'ayil hu mekem v'asita kasher nadam. At least he's performing the second half of the phrase, which is you should do as you vowed to do. ומקיים בכך את מצוות התורה משום שהפרט מוצא שפתיך תשמור אינו מעכב. Okay. Now he wants to explain this better. This whole topic. כדי להסביר טוב יותר פסק הרמב"ם כסברת רבנן יש להקדים ולבאר. So why in the end didn't the Rambam? You guys with me? Why in the end did the Rambam not paskin like Rebbe? So simple answer is because the Rambam holds like everybody else. You go by the majority opinion. And the majority say that it's only Yotze B'di'evet. It's only after the fact that you're considered to have performed. But l'chatchila, before the fact, you should bring exactly what you said. But now he brings something much deeper. במצוות עשה של תורה שאומר הרמב"ם שיקיים אדם נדרו בין שהיה מדרי איסור בין שהיה מדרי הקדש מביא הרמב"ם שני פסוקים. When the Rambam and let's see it now in the this is the fourth source here. The Rambam wants to explain what is this mitzvah of keeping a vow. Okay, so the fourth source here. Mitzvat aseh shel Torah. So he says in Hilchos Nedarim, the mitzvah from the Torah is sheikayem adam shuvato nidro. A person should keep his oath or his vow. Ben shaya minidrei isur, ben shaya minidrei hekdesh. Whether it is from a vow that comes to prohibit him from something, or whether it's a vow that he took to bring something to the holiness, to the temple. There are two different types of vows. One of them is meant to prevent me from doing certain things, meaning I want to add to myself additional prohibitions beyond what the Torah gave me. And the other one is I want to force myself to do something. That's called a nidrei hekdesh, that I'm consecrating something to bring to the temple. So I want to force myself to do something. And he brings two different sources. One says, Motzas v'techa tishmor v'asita kasher nadarta. The pasuk we've been dealing with until now. But now he suddenly brings, again, you should do what comes out of, guard what comes out of your lips, and do as you vowed. V'ne'emar, but there's another pasuk in Bamidbar and Matos, in Parashas Matos, kechol ha'yotzeh mipiv yaseh. Everything that came out of his mouth, he should do. Now, obviously, these are different. Because kechol ha'yotzeh mipiv yaseh seems to be the first part of the phrase in Dvarim. Motzas v'techa tishmor. You should guard what comes out of your mouth. But v'asita kasher nadad, you should do as you vowed, is not exactly the same thing as kechol ha'yotzeh mipiv yaseh. Because kechol ha'yotzeh mipiv yaseh seems to say exactly what you said. That's what you need to do. So what's the difference between them? Why did he bring two sources? So says the Rebbe, it seems very clear
that they're two separate things. That
they're talking about two different types of vows, two different types of nedarim. It's very glad. It's very easy to see this. That's what the Rambam wants to do. So he says the difference between these two verses, ההבדל בין שני פסוקים אלו הוא הפסוק מוצא שפתיך תשמור ועשית כאשר נדרת עוסק בנדרי הקדש. This is talking about forcing you to do something, to bring something to the temple. ואילו הפסוק ככל היוצא מפיו יעשה עוסק בנדרי איסור. That's when it comes to prohibit him. And it's also, he says, it's the context of the psukim in the Chumash is exactly that. Then in Parshas Matos, it's talking about personal vows. What's it talking there? About the woman who makes vows and the man who makes vows. And it's all about personal vows. And personal vows are always to prohibit me from something. Lindol mi mashu means that I'm prohibited from taking any enjoyment from it. But in Parshas Likutei, it's talking about bringing something to the temple. So it's also in the context is
but it's also the same. You've taken it upon yourself to bring something to the temple. So
but the language used to describe it is different.
But you've got two things at play. A, keep your mouth shut, right? You are in control of what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
But if you happen to say it, if you didn't have that control, if you didn't exercise your control, now you're obligated, you've undertaken. So they're completely different things. How could they be even conceived to be the same?
Here we're not so interested in the essence of what it means to either take something upon myself or to prohibit myself from something. We're looking at how do we treat what the person said, and we're saying we treat what he said differently in both categories.
Right.
Each category, whether I'm prohibiting something personally or I'm forcing myself, I'm encouraging myself, let's call it, to do something above and beyond to bring it to the temple, the way we treat what the person said is categorically different.
Right.
When it comes to things that are an isser, meaning that simply you can't. Here we have this difference between Rebbe and Chazal, whether we catch the first half of the phrase or the second half of the phrase. But when it comes to consecrating something for the temple, it's just kechol hayotze mipiv. So you have to do exactly what you said. Okay. כפי שרואים ברמב"ם המצוות שבמילה המצוות בתחילת ספר יד הרסקה, כאשר הוא מצטט רק את הפסוק מוצא שפתיך תשמור ועשית, הוא אומר שהמצווה היא לקיים אדם כל מה שיוציא בשפתיו. And he says there's another proof for this, that these two verses, they relate to the two categories. Because when he brings in the beginning of his book, the Rambam lists all the 613 commandments, and he lists, like we said yesterday, he explains in very short, each mitzvah, and he also explains the vows. And he says, when it comes to the Kayem Adam Kol Ma Sheyotzi B'Sfatav, anything that he has to do, this verse, Motzah Sfatecha Tishmor Ve'asita, is talking about Mikorban or B'Tzedakah V'Chayotze B'Zeh, when he wants to do a hekdesh, when he wants to add something to a service, he wants to bring something new and make it holy. ועל פי האמור לעיל מובן ההבדל בלשון הפסוקים לגבי נדרי איסור נאמר רק ככל היוצא מפיו יעשה, ואילו בנדרי הקדש נאמרים שני פרטים, מוצא שפתיך תשמור ועשית כאשר נדרת. So what it turns out to be, that when it comes to a hekdesh, there's more complexity in understanding it. But when it comes to a prohibition that I take upon myself, there's no complexity. It's very simple. ככל היוצא מפיו יעשה. Just whatever you said, that's what you have to do. What's the difference between the two? Between a prohibitive vow and one where I consecrate. So this is the essence of it all. That when I prohibit myself from something with a personal vow, I've created a prohibition based only on one thing, what I said, because I took it upon myself. That's all.
And how's that different?
And if I would not have said this, there's no prohibition in the Torah. There's no such thing. And in that case, you have to do exactly what you said because you're the only source.
Right.
How do we know what you wanted to do? Well, we have to look at what you said. We don't have it written in some book. We don't have a copy of the book in the Shema. We have to see what you said. We can't interpret it even. We have to understand exactly what you said. לעומת זאת, בנדרי הקדש, הרי הנדר גורם לכך שהחובה הקיימת בתורה, חובה של קורבן להשם ושל צדקה וכדומה, תחול על האדם. It says, but when it comes to, I want to consecrate, I want to bring a sacrifice, I want to do so, all I've done is I've taken the laws that are in the Torah about how to bring a sacrifice, and I've applied them to myself. I've connected them now to myself. When I say I'm going to bring a korban, I can't just bring. We can't ask you. How did you think about shechting it? Do you want to shecht it from here, from there? Do you want to? What do you think about what's a good specimen?
But you did take upon yourself the korban itself.
But I'm taking on myself a whole set of laws that
already
exist.
The laws accompanying that offering.
So I can't do it any way I want. I have to do it exactly the way the Torah wants me to do it.
So here's a question then. I say I'm bringing up a sheep, a lamb. Right, a young lamb, and for whatever reason, I can't get a young lamb. I can only get a sheep. Do I now have to bring up the sheep? Of course, but then I haven't fulfilled my vow, so therefore I need to be released from my vow.
No, so that's why we said, but the evid, if you bring something that's bigger, okay, you wanted a lamb, and you ended up bringing a sheep. So
I'm coming. I'm yotze.
Okay, because in the end, what did you want? You wanted to do a korban. That's why we have this interpretation, because we have something to base ourselves on.
Right.
We don't have to listen only to what you said. Because really, what did you say? I said, I want to bring a korban on myself. I want to be required to bring a korban. And this is even better. And the second thing they put here in parentheses, I don't know why they think it's in parentheses, it's even stronger. What is the difference between them? וכפי שהוסברו בהרחבה דברי הרמב"ם בסוף הלכות נדרים. At the end of Hilchos Nedarim, so this is the second to last thing here. It says, אמרו חכמים, כל הנודר כאילו בנה במה. In Gemara, you heard this once? כל הנודר כאילו בנה במה. If a person makes a vow, it's as if he constructed an altar.
Well,
What do you mean an altar?
Where's this in?
A few places in the Gemara. Here it says, by mistake, Nedarim Nuntet. It should say Nedarim Kaf Beis. In any case, doesn't matter. So, what do you mean by that?
Mizbech.
Yeah, but what do you mean? A bama is an altar, is a private altar. Right? How did the world work once? That every family had an altar in their backyard, and whatever korbanos they wanted to bring, they would take the firstborn, and he would be the priest, and he would sacrifice the. He would be like the one who served God. That's why
Before the temple.
This is before the Yiddishkeit even.
Right.
And Esav, who was the firstborn, so Yaakov convinced him, look, you know that if you make a mistake and bring in the korban, you're liable to die. So why do you need that? That's not for you. Give it to me. I'll do it. And that's how he bought. That's really what it means that he bought the firstborn rights.
Right.
The thing about when you die, you get this much. Less important. Day to day, the firstborn was the priest. That's how it worked. And when the Jewish people came out of Egypt, in the beginning, the priests were supposed to be the firstborn. But then they lost it because they were part of the ego. Because they were part of what?
They
Huh?
blew it.
They blew it. Okay. They blew too hard on the fire. So Aaron became. And then we saw that by Aaron also wasn't so simple, because his two firstborn children, what did they do? They also messed up. They also blew it. But still, it remained with Aaron, the priesthood. The priesthood is a very difficult thing, because really, what does it mean? Today, what does it mean? The Rambam says that any person who wants to become like a priest, he can. In what sense? That the priesthood today is the Talmidei Chachamim. It's the people, because that's our service, if you want, because we don't have a temple. In any case, before the temple was constructed, it took about 400 years before the temple was constructed after they came out of Egypt. So what did they do? They had private altars. And during the time that there was no tabernacle, that there was a tabernacle, was permitted to have a private altar. Only when the temple became the permanent place of the altar, then it became usher, it became prohibited to have a private altar at home. Why did a person want a private altar at home? Same reason a person wants a private car, doesn't want to use a cab, or doesn't want to use public transportation. You have to wait, you have to get all the way to the temple, you have to bring it to the priest, and they have a busy schedule.
Before the temple.
Doesn't matter.
Didn't they have a mizbeach by the Mishkan?
They did.
No.
But why do I have to go all the way there? I have one at home. I have my own private swimming pool. I don't have to go to the public swimming pool. Why would I want to?
So why don't we have it now?
Because the moment that the temple was built, it became the only place that you're allowed to.
According to what?
According to halacha.
So they created the halacha.
No, it's a pasuk it's a pasuk that's learned from the Chumash. That the moment that there's a permanent residence for the altar, it's no longer moving around like the tabernacle. And even though the tabernacle was for 369 years in the same place, it's still considered temporary. So from that moment on, there's no altars.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole thing, this opens up the reality of the situation was that the entire time of the first temple, there was nobody who was able to get rid of the private altars. And private altars are the main sin of the community in the time of the first temple. All 410 years, everybody still, not everybody, but a lot of people still have private altars, and they couldn't get it out of the people's system. So what is this like today? We look at this, we're like, well, you guys are quaint. Like an altar here, an altar there, what do you care? Just go to the temple, don't bring it down. For them, understand that you couldn't, there was no, in the first temple period, it's not clear there was even a concept of a minyan the way that we understand it. So for them to have a religious experience, it had everything to do with the altar. So I don't think everybody had in their backyard, but every city had an altar. Because for them that was a congregation place. That's how you met people. That's how you had the community events. And when you wanted to eat meat, so you said, on the contrary, I'll be more frum. I'll bring the meat as a shlamim. I'll bring it as a peace offering, and only part of it goes on the altar, and most of it is eaten. So that's how they did the simcha. And so I imagine by every wedding they brought a korban shlamim, 1 or 2 or 3, and was considered to be the sacrifice that we're doing in order to serve Hashem, to make Hashem part of the. So how do we translate it today? So here I have to bring you what Rav Ginsburg explained about this. It's very deep insight. That today the private altars are Facebook pages. That every person who wants to build himself an altar means that every person wants to be famous. That's like in the end you want people to commune around you. And so you build yourself an image. So this fits perfectly with what the Gemara is saying that the Chachamim say Kol hanoder kilu bana bama. Because what are you doing when you're taking on private prohibitions? It's like you're saying I'm different than everybody else. I have my own version of Yiddishkeit. Yours is not strict enough. I have mine.
Ich bin from there.
Okay.
And for the majority of the 400 years, that wouldn't have been far off from the truth because there's a lot of balagan going in the temple.
Okay, but this is still true today. There's no difference. When it comes to to vows that prohibit me from doing things, how do we say today? I have my churmas. Okay. That's what makes me different. You say that.
Gush katif vegetables.
That's nothing. My churma is like this. In the end, there's a big question about what are you doing? Are you really trying to serve Hashem, or are you trying to be different?
Oh.
No, I'm trying to be better.
Okay. Better by being different. Okay. What are you trying to do? So this puts this whole statement from Chazal, the Kol hanoder kilu bana bama. You understand why you have to annul your vows, why it's a mitzvah to do it. Because what are you doing when you're annulling? You're saying I want to become part of the general. I don't want to stick out. Now in Chassidus this is a big deal, because maybe the most important statement in Chabad about community affairs is that every individual should make sure not to have blitot. Not to have stuff that sticks out. Don't be different. Be normal. You want to do things at home where nobody sees you and nobody knows. But the whole point of a vow is that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Define normal. Me, I'm normal.
Yeah, we know that. What time is it?
I'm really late.
Okay, so Be'ez Hashem, we'll finish more tomorrow.
No.
We're very close to finishing this. When?
Yes, no. Tel Aviv, you want to come to